Sonia O'Neill, welcome.
Thank you.
Sonia, you arrived to Germany 3 weeks ago, and you are an extremely good football player. And you have played like almost all over the world already. You have really a journey behind you. Could you just summarize where you have played?
Yeah, I was born in Toronto, Canada, but I play for the Venezuelan national team. And I moved to the States to play, the United States, when I was 17. Then I played in Sweden, 2 places in Italy, France, Croatia, Scotland, Croatia, Germany. Yes.
And there's no way to not talk about it. When we talk about female football, there is also something that always comes with that, and that is a certain kind of perception that we have about females and how they look like when playing football, and you definitely do not suit that perception. It's a fact. How was your perceptive of that when you played in the different countries? How is female football perceived, and how are you perceived in the different countries?
Yes, I think it's different in every country, as you said, and in some countries I did find it a bit more difficult in the sense that I had to prove myself more, or they were asking me to post only football pictures if I wanted more playing time, and my response would be, I'm not going to change who I am. You saw on my Instagram how I was before. I think as long as you're being professional about it and following the rules of a club, it shouldn't affect your skill and how you're playing. I want to be judged as a footballer, but at the same time, I want younger girls to see that they can have more than one interest. They can do their hair and makeup and play football, basketball, baseball, whatever the sport may be. And I think when I was younger in high school, I had a best friend that helped me be comfortable being who I was and doing my hair, makeup, eyelashes, and I'd always get comments even from friends and family at the time, and it wasn't in a rude way, but they were saying like, do you think you should be wearing makeup to play football? And I said, why not? I mean, it wasn't like a full face of makeup, but I'm like, why not? I'm like, if I'm still kicking the ball the same way, I think how I look shouldn't affect it at all.
No, it shouldn't, definitely not. And we should talk about that also because you mentioned Instagram. You have actually over 350,000 followers on Instagram, so this is like an enormous amount. Do you know anybody else who's playing female football who has that many followers?
Yes, I have some teammates on Venezuela that have, one is playing at Man City, she has 1.6 million. One of my friends, she has 70,000, 60,000, 80,000. One of my teammates, I had spoke to her, she's a younger player, and I told her to be more active on social media. And she's like, well, I don't like posing like you or doing, and I'm like, you don't have to do what I do. Like, find your niche. If it's art and football, do art and football. And she started posting more often, her style, and she went up, I think, 50K in 1 week after signing with a new club, and them looking at her profile.
But how important is it in female football? With male, you see it a lot that the whole marketing around their figure is extremely important. How much do you see the importance there with female football?
I think it's just as important. One of the things I did notice, for example, you have Cristiano Ronaldo who shows off his body constantly to show off his hard work, but I think there's still that line with females where when they post something showing off their body in a gym, on a beach, like in this type of scene, it's an issue for clubs and fans still, which I think needs to change, because if Ronaldo's doing it and it shows his hard work, he's such a professional, then why when a female does it, not always of course, but most clubs find it an issue, if that makes sense.
Where do you think this is rooted in?
I think it comes from my experience playing in Scotland. It came from how people react to your pictures and what they're saying. So I would actually get called into the office for what fans were saying on one of my pictures. I said looking for a fresh set of legs during preseason, which signifies that my legs were heavy and I was looking for a fresh legs. It meant like training was hard. And there was a few sexual comments on the page, and to me, I have the confidence to just ignore those comments. But they called me and I was actually getting in trouble for it, where they tried to fine me for it, and it ended up they couldn't fine me for it because I posted a football picture with a normal captain, no vulgarness, no swearing, no nothing, and that was the situation. So I think it comes from based off how people react. It makes people uneasy, and I think it's just because it's something new and they're not used to it. That's more what it is. It's kind of out of their comfort zone. They don't know what to do with it. Women's football is growing immensely now, and I think they're still learning how to go through things. For example, a body fat percentage test. They didn't know how to word it for us, and we said, well, we're asking for the same as the men. It's a body fat percentage test. It's how much fat we got on us, and that's what it is. You don't have to be more sensitive with us because we're female. If we want to play like the men, professional and everything, then we want the same. So it's just things like that. I think sometimes they overthink it, or sometimes they don't know how to react to it.
Back in the days, it was Beckham who started the whole metrosexual approach, where men cared more about what kind of cream they're putting in their face. And it was a huge discussion. I mean, people were talking about what kind of cream he was using, if it was okay as a football player. Now, this is all a marketing thing. Do you see that this will happen in female football as well, that you can embrace femaleness on that level?
I'm in a position now on social media where I can show that you can do both and you can be great at both, and that it doesn't take away from what I'm doing on the field as long as I'm keeping it professional. I don't see why it'd affect it. I mean, if I'm defending goals or playing well with makeup on, then it just shows them that it shouldn't make a difference.
And it doesn't, as you can prove, because you don't only play in the national team of Venezuela, you have also some other achievements on the field.
Yeah, well, actually, I was the first Venezuelan player in history to score in Champions League, play in Serie A, play in Scotland, play in France, and I'm the second to play in Bundesliga. So those are some of the accomplishments, but yeah.
So every time you come home, it's like a national party for you?
Yeah, I don't know. A huge part of where I am now is actually because of playing on the Venezuelan national team. I think they're a country that's embraced the women's team, and I mean, those supporters are beyond loyal. They're all trying to figure out trying to translate the Turbine Potsdam page. They're messaging me about the club. They're asking for jerseys. When we travel, we need security, even when we're in Ecuador, because all the fans come. Like, they're just incredible, and I think that's something I really appreciate about Venezuela, and I'm starting to see that in other countries as well, which is great. So,
what's your wish for the future of female football? Where do you hope that we will be in 3 years?
In 3 years, I think we're in the right path and the right step, but I think one thing that is missing is finance. And some players are lucky, and especially if you're playing on a national team, you are a bit more fortunate when it comes to contracts. But other girls, especially local ones, are not as fortunate, and I've noticed that in every country. And I'm not going to stand here and say that I should be paid the same as Messi, Neymar. No chance, I'll be honest. And I think, it's not about equality. I think it's just women should be paid where they don't need a second job, and where you don't have 4 players being paid where they can afford stuff, and then you have half a team where they're choosing what to eat because they don't have enough money for it. So I think it's not a matter of comparing it to the men's. Let's just focus, let's say, on the women's football and say, okay, it's not fair that this girl needs 2 or 3 jobs just to have a normal life. We're not talking a lavish life. And I think that's another thing that I put a lot of focus on social media, was because I do have a university's degree, but I knew that a lot of money in women's football comes from sponsorship. Where does most sponsorship come from now? It's on social media. So I think that's why I put a lot of work into it in the past, and being consistent and stuff like that.
That's incredibly inspiring, Sonia. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.